Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I've got the tank review for the brand new Western Lights Era 2 Premium Light Tank, the M163 VADs, or the Vulcan Air Defense System. If you do like the video, as always, don't forget to like and subscribe down below, as it really does help out the channel. And yes, the VADs. It is a tank that has it's basically on the basis of the M113 with this 20mm machine gun, pretty much, is what it's got, as it is a anti-air gun on it. It's a pretty balanced tank. It's pretty well-rounded in the fact that it's bad in quite a lot of areas, but it's also pretty decent in some others. Do I enjoy it? Not particularly. I find it pretty boring to play, honestly. It's kind of like the Weasel in that regard, that it's just a bit one-dimensional. Far more balanced than the Weasel, though, which is a good thing, which is a very good thing. But yeah, I just don't enjoy playing it whatsoever. I just find it kind of boring. But it doesn't mean it's incapable. It's definitely capable of having some nice games, and you're going to see that. It's just that there's quite a few times when it can be pretty frustrating as well. But let's get into the M163 VADs, which is one of the other tanks that you could get from the Celebrations rewards. And the statistics for this vehicle are that it has a 64.4 km/h top speed with a 27 km/h reverse speed, 212 horsepower engine, which is 17.38 horsepower per ton ratio. 12% internal fire chance means it's on the lower end of internal fire chances, which is pretty good. The 64 kilometers now, you can get up to 70 if you were to run the traction system, and you would get there since you've got a decent power to weight. But since you are quite a light vehicle and you've only got 212 horsepower engine, it's quite likely that when you hit destructible cover, and it does happen, and especially when you're going up hills and things, your tank really does start to struggle. You hit a wall, you lose a fair bit of momentum, not quite as much as you would in a Weasel, for example, but you do lose a bit of momentum, and if you're trying to get up to speed, it does feel that little bit more sluggish. You got 2,300 hit points, which is okay for a light tank in Era 2. You got 44 degrees a second on the hull rotation speed, which means this tank does turn fairly quickly. Ground resistances are basically non-existent, they don't hold the tank back whatsoever. 289 meters of steel concealment, you can get down to an okay level with the Cabernet and with the smoke consumable. 570 meters of view range is pretty decent, means you'll spot for yourself quite well in the VADs. As you are a light tank, it's nice to be able to scout at times, and I do help out that factor, especially since there's quite a lot of times where the gun, you can't really do much to vehicles with the gun. You got 75 degrees a second on the turret rotation speed, which is absolutely rapid. The turret turns so fast that it's very, very nice in that regard. You don't really have to help it out if you don't want to, but sometimes the overkill turning turret is very, very nice. You got 1.5 accuracy during rotation, which is atrocious, but 0.9 accuracy during movement, which is pretty damn good. If we're honest, you're going to be taking everything to help this accuracy during rotation, so that when you turn the tank and the turret, your aim circle doesn't bloom out that much at all, and you can just keep this gun firing. And especially since this gun will be firing quite a lot on the move as well, it's nice to be able to get that down as low as possible so that you can hit as many shots as you can with it. You got 80 degrees of elevation, because again, it's an anti-air gun, so it can just look straight up into the sky. You got 5 degrees of gun depression, which is a bit limiting, and especially since you are a very tall tank, it means that you can struggle at times to get the gun depression to hit the targets you want to hit, so just be careful of that. 20-second reload on the clip, which is apparently 16k DPM, but you'll never hit that. And that's because you have this 20-second reload on the clip for a 1200 shot clip, but you also have the cooldown mechanic, or the overheat mechanic, I should say, on this gun. So as well as having the clip where you can run out of rounds in the clip, you can overheat the gun as well, which means you have a big wait time to be able to get to fire again. So there is that. You've got 0.2 accuracy at 100 meters, which is really accurate. Like I said, that 0.9 accuracy during movement is really good, and you can get that down to being fantastic. 2-second aim time means that this gun does aim in supremely quickly, and a 0.02 intra-clip reload, which means this tank does go brrrr, which can be satisfying when it works. You got APDS on the standard, HE on the other round, with 81mm of penetration on the standard APDS, which is low, and it does struggle to pen tanks, this vehicle. You have to get up behind people to be able to actually pen them, and there's quite a few tanks in Era 2 that you can't actually pen whatsoever, which can be a bit frustrating. You do have the bleed-through mechanic on this vehicle as well, so the armor damage is 10, with 20 on the HE, and bear in mind that you do have the bleed-through mechanic on this tank. It doesn't quite, you don't feel the effect of it quite as much as you do on something like the GAU 8 Avenger, because it's got a little bit more damage, so naturally it ticks a little bit easier on the bleed-through. But I've seen people saying, you know, it says I've got 10 damage, but I'm only ever seeing 1 or 2s. When you're seeing 1 or 2 damage on the ticks, that's because you're not penetrating the armour of the vehicle. You're just getting the bleed through mechanic come through. So you've got 10 damage on your rounds. 1,120 meters a second shell velocity on the APDS is above average, and it's pretty okay. You do have to give a good amount of lead to be able to hit the target, especially on the light tanks that you're going to be chasing down, because they're the ones that especially you can deal with quite easily. You will be having to give a decent amount of lead to hit those tanks as they're on the move. And in terms of the earn rate, it does earn 155% silver bonus, which is pretty decent, meaning as well as the fact that you don't have premium, you will, well, you should make a decent amount of silver. The one thing that I found, though, is it doesn't make that much silver, but that's because you fire a lot of rounds. And the rounds do cost you silver, and therefore, naturally, you lose a lot of silver because you don't pen a lot of the rounds. So it's sort of counterbalanced on that. So what do I run in terms of a crew and equipment? Well, in terms of equipment on the VADs, I do run smoke to make the concealment better, but also to be able to pop smoke and get out of dodge if I need to. I run the camo net to make the camo better on this vehicle so that it's harder for people to spot me, so that I can go into very easy flanking positions without them seeing me, and then I can dump on them with this gun. The gun stabilizer to make the accuracy during rotation and movement as low as possible, which you don't really need for the movement, but especially for the rotation, you want to get the accuracy during rotation down as low as humanly possible, because otherwise it is really not that great. And then I run the traction system to get faster, so I can go at 70 kilometers an hour. If you're not bothered about the gun and you feel like the gun's good enough without the gun stabilizer, you could just drop the gun stabilizer quite easily and run the advanced powertrain, in which case you will then go at 73 kilometers an hour, and naturally you'll get up to the top speed a little bit easier as well, because you're given the extra little bit of horsepower, which can be very nice. The gun stabilizer could be a bit superfluous, honestly, so it's quite easy to drop it for the powertrain, but again, it's down to you and how you feel comfortable playing the vehicle. I just like making the gun be able to hit most of the shots, especially when I'm on the move, but it's down to you and how you feel comfortable with it. And in terms of a crew, I do run, I've just dropped it into the old Bagel Panzer. I do run Bone Leader, Rapid Reload, Sixth Sense, Snapshot, Rapid Aim, Deadeye, the Camouflage Expertise, Muffled Shot, and Situational Awareness. So I run these 3 perks because you'll run these on every single tank in Cold War. The Snapshot to make the accuracy during rotation better, because again, like I've said, it's pretty poor, so I want to try and make it as good as humanly possible. Rapid Aim to make the turret traverse even better, because it is phenomenal, but quite easily, to be fair, because the track traverse is way worse than the turret, you could run clutch braking instead. Deadeye for the memes, so I can increase my chance of doing module damage, and especially since a lot of rounds are going to hit and pen, if they do pen, a lot of rounds are going to hit targets very, very quickly. Increasing the chance of doing module damage by 6% is a very nice thing to have, increasing your chance of setting people on fire or damaging ammo racks, all that good stuff. Camouflage Expertise and Muffled Shot, again, to knock the camo down on this vehicle, and then reduce the effect of firing on the camo by 35%, so it's a lot harder for people to see me, especially when I'm starting to machine gun them. And Situational Awareness, just to get the view range even higher, so that I can spot people in my scout, so that I can try and get some spotting assist. Now, quite easily, you could drop stuff like Rapid Aim and run clutch braking, you could drop Muffled Shot, and run steady aim if you wanted to make it a little bit more accurate, but to be honest, you don't need to make it more accurate with steady aim and run a gun, because the accuracy is already fantastic on this vehicle, and the accuracy during movement is also, again, already fantastic with running the gun stabilizer, so you don't really need it. You could quite happily run supply conservation, which will get your smoke consumable back 15% quicker, which is always very, very handy, to be fair. You could run armor angling to reduce the amount of damage coming into the tank by 5%. It's really down to you and how you feel comfortable playing the old vehicle. So, let's have a look at the modules of the tank, as people do like to see that. That's where the ammo is on the old VADs. As you can see, you can see the belt there, you can see in the middle there, and the back. So if you want to damage the ammo rack of this tank, you're actually quite good to shoot it right here in this back end, and you will damage the ammo rack, and try your best to pop it in that regard. And that's where the engine block is. So the engine block is actually in the exact same spot as the ammo rack. So if you want to damage the engine and ammo rack, shoot it in this back section here of the VADs, and you will really hurt it quite badly. And that's where the crew sits in the VADs as well. In terms of the armour, it doesn't really have any, but to answer the questions that I've actually seen knocking around as well, it does have 6mm of spaced armour, knocking around on both sides and on the front. And then in that front compartment there as well, you can see it behind the front end of the VADs, so you can see it here. That is another 6mm of spaced armour in a different compartment, which also helps to reduce the effect of stuff like ATGMs. So I've seen it quite a few times where someone said, how did I not pen the VADs with an ATGM? It's because it's just randomly getting absorbed or having its penetration reduced by these 6mm spaced armour. Same as heat rounds hitting it, not penning, and yourself with your own autocannon shooting at this thing. Sometimes you don't actually pen it, and you sit there going, what? It's a box with no armour. And it's because these 6mm of spaced armour really play a key part in just reducing the chance of ATGMs penning and HE penning and autocannons going through it. Still does get shredded, because especially if the autocannons avoid those top sections and hit the lower sections, they're going to pen you really easily. But yeah, it's just something to note that occasionally you'll notice HE heat and ATGMs don't really do much, and you go, what? It's because of that spaced armour. But without further ado, let's look at the statistics while it's now fully kitted out. You've got 70.84 km/h top speed now, with a 29 km/h reverse speed, which is fantastic. You've got even better ground resistances, which again were already non-existent, so whatever. 48.4 degrees a second on the hull rotation speed means this tank does turn a bit quicker now because of the traction system. 182 meters of still concealment is okay for this vehicle, means that you can quite easily slip unnoticed into good positions to get shots into people's ass and use this gun effectively. 633 meters of view range means you can spot for yourself really, really well in this tank. 86.83 degrees a second on the turret rotation speed is stupidly quick. Again, you could drop rapid aim and run clutch braking to make this better, because you'll probably get that up to about 52 degrees a second if you were running clutch braking, but it's down to you and how you feel confident with the tank. We've got the accuracy during rotation down to 1.28, so it's slightly better than it was. The accuracy during movement's down to 0.76, but we haven't really helped that out that much. 1.92 second aim time is a little bit better than the 2 it was, and you got 0.19 accuracy as well at 100 meters, which is absolutely super duper great, with 17.07 second reload on the clip, meaning that actually quite a lot of the time, if you overheat, and that's one thing to know, if you overheat, just reload, because it tends to be that it takes longer to get the cooldown back than it does to reload the clip. So if you hit the overheat mechanic, you may as well reload at the same time, and that way when your gun starts to cool down and you can actually start firing again, you've got a full clip ready to go. But yeah, that's the M163 VADs. Like I say, it's a tank that is capable, it's fairly balanced, it can decimate something fairly quickly, but a lot of the time it doesn't pen, which can be frustrating. Its mobility is okay, but it can be a bit sluggish. The camo is okay enough on it, though, as well. Generally, on the whole, though, I didn't really enjoy it, to be honest. It's that type of tank that's kind of like the Weasel, where it's a bit one-dimensional in the way that the gun and the tank plays, and I just don't particularly enjoy that myself. But yeah, that's the VADs. So what I'm going to do now is send you into the replays where you can watch this tank in action, see how it handles, and, well, just see if it's a bit of you or not. So as always, everybody, I will see you in the replays. So here we are in the replays with the VADs, and this first game is here on this map, which is El Alamein. On an El Alamein, what I want to do is go to the position around H4, because from there I can try and shoot the people down the 1-2 line, but I could also try and get some cheeky shots at people that are at E5. Now, it doesn't work out quite as easily for the VADs in that regard, because I have to stick around longer, naturally, than most of the tanks to be able to do damage. I can't just pop a shot and then run away. You have to sit there and fire, which means this position can be a bit more awkward. And add to that, we only have 5 degrees of gun depression, and we're a very tall tank. As you can see, the VADs is a pretty tall tank, which means 5 degrees of gun depression really does impact it quite badly. And will make, again, this position pretty awkward because, yeah, we'll struggle to be able to get the gun down to shoot things. But we saw movement in the distance, so I'm just looking to see if I can see what that tank was, but it's dropped back behind the ridge at E1, so I'm not going to be able to see it. And I decided, okay, let's go poke over the front of this ridge line here to see if we can shoot anything. So we see the medium tank that we just spotted up there, which I think was a Magak 6B, well, it's one of the Magaks. Yeah, 6B GAL there. We see the ELC, and I'm like, yes, ELC to machine gun, but no, he gets GAU 8 blacked. The GAU 8 on the opposition team is running away up into the distance, so I think I'll see if I can get shots into his side. And then we see the other ELC. I'm like, yes, let's shoot that guy. But we only hit him a couple of times. We managed to get 127 damage. And you saw there, you really have to give a lot of lead to be able to hit the target on tanks that are on the move at decent speed in the distance. We had to pull back, though, because we had the GAU 8 from their team start to machine gunners. And trust me, when the Avenger starts to fire at you, you need to pull back because your hit points just go bye-bye. You die now. And yeah, it's what happens with the VADs. So we see the ELC, and I'm like, Mr. ELC, it's time for revenge for all the times that your brethren have got me completely without me being able to see you. Yes! Death. A great, glorious death. Satisfying. Honestly, when it works. When it works, it can be satisfying. So I see the GAU 8 and I'm like, oh no, that's bad. But thankfully, the BMP2 gets in with an ATGM. That was a mistake, really. I shouldn't have gone in on that GAU 8 black. I'm not quite sure what I was doing there. It was always going to go pretty poorly. But we see the Magak 6B GAL. It's like, hello, sir. If I can blow his tracks off, that would be great, which is what we're aiming for there. We do it, and I decide, okay, I'm just going to dump all the way into my overheat into the back of that guy because my friends are coming in and they should be able to finish him off and get rid of him. And I thought, well, you know, I'll just dump all the rounds I can rather than having to wait for the overheat mechanic. But as you can see, the overheat is quite a long wait, which is why I say it's best just to full reload the clip because you have the time to actually full reload the clip while waiting for this overheat, and then you can be fully ready to go because you've got to have those two things both in mind. Number one, when you're playing with it, try to feather it so that you don't go into the overheat because it does take a wee while to be able to actually get back into a position where you can fire again. And then also keep in mind that you do have a clip. So you've got to keep your eye on how much is in the clip while also keeping an eye on your overheat. Because if you end up overheating but you've got like 10 shots left in the clip, you may as well just reload. But like I say, if you end up overheating on the gun anyway, you should just reload no matter what. Because you'll have the time to reload. So you can see against the T80, we were really struggling to get any shots to pen him there. I was really hoping to get shots into the side, the back end of the side or the rear, because that's where I can pen a T80, but nothing really happened. We're going on the M163 You can see the bleed damage occasionally getting 1 or 2 damage, but we were really doing absolutely nothing to the front of that guy, and thankfully he gets shut down by our M103A2 because we were probably going to die there. It was not a good time because we did take a hit from both the M103A2 and the T80 as well, which put us down into this 174 hit point range. So there's 2 tanks left on the enemy team. There's the heavy tank behind us, and I decide, okay, I know where there's a Bagel Panzer. I can machine gun a Bagel Panzer. So we go chasing after this guy, which can be a bit deadly because obviously he could kill us, but I'm confident in my ability to machine gun. But again, you're seeing how much I'm having to lead. We do get quite a few rounds into him there, but he ends up just snapping onto us and finishes us off, and sadly we get finished off. But heyo, we finished with the victory there. 2 kills, 5.2k damage, the second class with 1090 base XP. A fairly decent game there for the M163 VADs. I think that showed off really the good and the bad points there, where you can get about the battlefield pretty decently with the mobility. The gun puts out damage pretty quickly, but you have to pen, and there's quite a few tanks that you really do struggle to pen, and the moment you start to struggle, it goes downhill pretty quickly. And then also, shooting at targets on the move like that Bagel Panzer, even though I was given a good amount of lead, I was only about 200 meters away, it was still landing behind him. I have to give way more lead to be able to hit those shots on the move. But we're on to the second replay. The second replay, we are on Kasserine. We see the RDF LT, and he's actually a bit of an awkward tank to be able to pen fully with the VADs because of the angles on his front. With 81mm of penetration in this 20mm as well, it can be a bit awkward. We've got the side of a Leopard, so we put some shots into that guy. The ELC even SS12 gets spotted in the distance, which makes me go, okay, that guy's fired an ATGM, I need to get back. Because that's about the only time those ELCs ever get spotted, is when they've fired an ATGM. So if you see it pop up on the map, you're best just to go, no! I say no, 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 and get back behind the ridgeline, right? It's just it's the best thing to do. So we're up to 73 assistance with 1242 damage, and Mr. BMP2 is what I really want to get after again. always have in mind what targets you're going for. Stuff like light tanks, like a BMP2, is easy prey for something like the VADs, and that's what you want to be going for over something like a T80 like you saw in the last game, because we can wreck that guy. We can't do that quite as easily to the T80. So we've got the Megak 6BGAL, and again, because it's that M48, M60 type hull, I know exactly where I can pen that guy. I have to aim for the back end of the vehicle, and as you're seeing, some are penning, some aren't. I feather the overheat. You can see that was the perfect feathering of the overheat there. We never hit overheat, but we managed to finish off the 6BGAL, and it was the knowledge there of where to shoot the GAL is why we got the damage. Because if you have those things sideways on, if you shoot them in the front end of the side, you're never going to pen them. But if you shoot them in the back end of the side, it's slightly weaker, and that's where you're more likely to pen them with 81mm of penetration, even at that angle, and you can start damaging the engine. And especially when you're shooting him in the back end like that, we were just keeping his tracks blown off every single time, and thus he was just trapped, and we managed to get most of his hit points. We're up to 611 assistance, 3.8k damage. It's like, hello, Mr. T80B. Once again, the T80B, we can pen it in the rear and the back end of the side once again, and that's what we're kind of aiming to do, and we get a decent amount of damage there on him again, pushing us up to 4.6k damage. The VADs in the distance get spotted, so we were going to try and get a shot into him there, but, well, he ended up just going kaboom! And then we see an ELC, even SS-12, and it's like, hello, sir! VADs, Mr. Vulcan Air Defense System, Mr. VADs, likes ELC, even SS-12s, and likes watching them go evaporate. It's quite satisfying when they do. So we're chasing after him. Again, you're seeing how much lead you have to give. We end up tracking him there with the shot, which puts him in a really awkward spot. So we're just getting behind him, RBRT onto him, and good night, Mr. ELC, even SS-12. Machine gunned out of the game. We're up to 1,085 assistance, 5,920 damage. 2 tanks left on the enemy team. There's the heavy tank in the dip and the Brennus. Want to go after the Brennus because I can quite easily pen that in the side, but if the T80B wants, sorry, the T80 wants to give us shots into his side and rear there, well, who am I to turn him down? And we managed to get shots into his drive wheel, which tracks and pens him, gives us the tracking assist there, as well as getting a load of extra damage. We're up to 6.2k damage. With the 1 tank left on the enemy team, it is Mr. Brennus. So we've gone for the full reload so that we can have a clip ready to just spam out when we get the chance to shoot him. But the Jaguar Black finishes off the Brennus, and we finish the game with a decent total there for the VADS on Kasserine. Finished with the victory, 3 kills, 6.2k damage, 2.4k assist, the first class with the 1257 base XP. A pretty nice game there for the M163 VADs on Kasserine, where we just managed to get around, get up behind people, machine gun away, find the light tanks, and just delete. So now we're on to the third replay, and the third replay we're here on this map, which is Ruinberg. And on Ruinberg, what I want to try and do is get to the mid-ridge, and that way I can shoot down into the town along the EF line, and then get any of the light tanks that come in as well. So we've got a Scorpion 90 who's coming in. It's like, Mr. Scorpion 90, you're coming in front of my gun, which is definitely a mistake, and all of the machine guns that are coming in. Well, and poor Mr. Outdated Scorpion 90 just gets absolutely trashed by all of the auto cannons firing at him. We finish him off, well, he gets finished off with a Bagel Panzer, but we ended up with 728 damage out of that. Ignis Brigatio spotted directly in front of us. It's like, hello, Mr. Ignis, I can pen you, right? Apparently not. We can't pen an Ignis Brigatio. We were doing absolutely nothing to him. We blew his tracks off, but we weren't actually doing any damage, realistically. We're doing, like, again, the bleed-through damage. We were doing 2 to 3 to 4 damage to him, which is where I can understand people getting confused when they're going, why, it says I've got 10 alpha, but I'm only doing like 1, 2, 3 damage. Why is that? It's because of this bleed-through mechanic. Again, you're seeing it on the back of the T10. Sometimes it's 10, sometimes it's 1. And that's because some rounds are penning, some rounds aren't. You're getting that bleed-through mechanic that is going off, where you're sort of always guaranteed to do a little bit of damage depending on the armor plates that you're hitting. So now that the threat in the town is starting to be distracted, I want to go after their light tanks. There's a VADS, there's a Bagel Panzer. I want to go after those guys because, again, they're fairly easy prey for me to go after. Something like that AV, however, I'm not really going to do anything against. So I'm just trying to find some shots into the Bagel Panzer. I thought he was going to keep driving along, so I was trying to lead the shot, but he ends up stopping behind the building, so I can't quite shoot at him. And what I want to do is just get away from this T-72 AV and get towards their VADs. So I pop smoke so that we sort of bamboozle the AV into not shooting us, and then we get after their VADS. He gets ATGM'd by the Bagel. I also got a few shots into him, and that's where I kind of forgot about my clip. I was like, oh yeah, this thing has got a clip, hasn't it? Yeah, whoops. And he ATGMs us for quite a lot, and we're stuck in a reload, meaning we can't quite get after the Bagel Panzer. I've got to keep in mind the Bagel Panzer and the AV are after me, but the Bagel Panzer's now been, well, bageled himself. He's enjoying his bagel delivery system. And once again, we're getting away from the AV. I can't do anything to that AV, so there's just no point looking at him. I really have to get up behind his rear to be able to do anything, and even then it can be a bit awkward because they've got the Soviet 200mm log on the back, which loves to be able to sponge bullets, which can be a bit frustrating. But we're now behind the T-10B. Again, we're aiming for the bottom end of the T-10B, not the upper section of his engine deck, or of his back end anyway, because the upper section of his back end is actually quite tough for the VADs to pen, whereas if you aim lower, you're more likely to pen it. We managed to come back in, finish him off, and get rid of that T-10B. Marder 1A1, I really want to get after, but if I can get up behind the light tank and the medium tank first, I should be able to machine gun those two guys as well and get some damage. There's a TR-580, which again, I can pen it in the rear. I just have to aim low and avoid the log, which we're not doing at the minute. There we go. We end up aiming lower so we can guarantee the pen, and lots of his hit points disappear very, very quickly. Waiting for a bit more of the cooldown before going after the Marder, who is backing up. We've got to be careful, though, of the Marder, because the Marder can naturally take my hit points very, very quickly. And with the way that these autocannons are, with the slightly lower damage and how fast they fire at you, sometimes you don't quite register how fast your hit points are disappearing when they're hitting you. And you go, oh my goodness me, my hit points are gone, right? So you just got to be careful of that. So there's only one tank left, and it is the T-72 AV. So my choices here is basically try and get shots into the side of the T-72 AV and track him so that my team feed me tracking assist, which would be quite useful. Or he's got 30 HP, so maybe we'll try and get some bleed-through damage, which we didn't really get anything of. And he gets shut down by the Ignis Pagatio. And we finish the game with the epic victory. We've come top on the team with 2 kills, 7.3k damage, 1315 base XP, which is a pretty nice game for the VADs there on Rurenberg. 2.1k assist as well, it's not 9k combined. The first class, the Confederate, for 1315 base XP. Pretty decent game there for the VADs on Rurenberg, where we just managed to get around, get flanking, get after the light tanks, and we just managed to play that surprise assassin mode, which is something that you want to be doing in this vehicle, where you're not being the focus of people's attention, you're just popping up out of the blue behind someone going hello, and then putting shots into the rear and guaranteeing the pen in that regard. And something you might want to think about when you're going after people, like especially when we went off that after that TR-580, for example, it might have been good to blow his tracks off from behind and then go for the rear so that he couldn't just instantly turn around, because we'd have had the problem where if he turned around and as soon as we got his side of the TR-580, we would probably have actually struggled to pen him, so you've got to be careful of that. So I was distracted there because I was watching something moving in the background, and then it was like, oh, hello, Mr. Leopard. And you can see, even on the side of a Leopard at this distance, we were actually bouncing a lot. We still did 1,069 damage, or 1,169 damage, but we'd bounced quite a bit off of that Leopard there before our overheat kicked in. We see the T-80 and the light tank as well as the ELC even SS-12, and I really kind of want to go after those guys, but it's a bit too soon. So we're just watching the K-tank and the medium tank at the back. I also know there is something back there that will be firing ATGMs. I'm pretty sure there's an ELC even SS-12 somewhere, so I've just got to be careful of that. I don't want to stick around for too long because I don't want to take the damage from those guys. And we see that we've actually got a Mobat go right into the back of this stuff like the ELC even SS-12, the light tank, and the T-80B. So I kind of want to help this guy out if I can. The Leopard 1A5 comes YOLOing past him. Well, don't mind if I do, Mr. Leopard 1A5, as we absolutely machine gun him in the side and rear, shutting him down. 2.6k damage now. Keep my eye on the ELC even SS-12, but also I want to help out my Mobat if I can to get after this T-80. So I'm just trying to track him, and I'm hoping I'm going to track him so I can get up behind the side and rear there to shut him down. We finished him off because we got the shots, but the ELC even SS-12 actually turned around and shot us with an ATGM, which I fully wasn't expecting that guy to do because he was being chased down, and I thought, oh, that guy's, you know, going to run away, right? No, he didn't. So I went for the full overheat there. on the ELC even SS12. Why? Because I was about to run out of clip. So I thought, may as well just dump all of the rounds I can, as many as possible, into that ELC even SS12, and then I'll have the time to reload while the overheat's going. But as you can see, we've just done 17 seconds on the reload, and then the overheat kicked in a second or two later, which means that we're finally cooling down on this gun, which is why I say that the moment you end up overheating on the gun, you may as well just reload the clip, because you'll have all the time to do that, and that way you'll be fully ready to go when you are called into action. So we're up to 3 kills with 6.2k damage, 260 assistance. We see the VADs there in front of us, and I'm like, Mr. VADs, I want you, but our VADs and someone else is going after them. Also a Weasel, so we're just RBRT onto their VADs, finish him off with the clip. Weasel there as well spotted. We get a couple of shots into him, and he gets finished off. There's only 4 tanks left on the enemy team. There's the K tank in front of us, there's a TD that's just been shut down, and the heavy tank in the middle as well. So I'm just trying to hopefully get shots into the rear of the K tank, because again, it's that M60 type, M48, M60 type hull, which means that we can pen the back end of the rear, and especially if you get the engine bay, you can just decimate it, because it's very, very easy to pen, because it's a very big, wide hit point, or hitbox, I should say. And we end up just surprising the K-Tank, coming around behind him and finishing him off. Now there's a T-72 AV, which again, like I say, I can't do anything to his side. I have to get his rear. And we've managed to blow his tracks off, and this is what we're doing. Once again, I shouldn't go into the overheat. I should feather here, but I did. And again, it's because we were just running out of enemy team to shoot, so I may as well just dump as many rounds as possible. And we finished with the epic victory, 5 kills, 9.2k damage, 913 assistance, 132,000 silver, first class with the high caliber. And that's what I'm talking about, the silver. It doesn't seem to make quite as much silver as you hope with it, and I think that's because you do end up firing a lot of rounds and not penning a lot of rounds, which means it costs you a lot of silver in ammunition cost. But yeah, that's the VADs. Finished with it. Like I say, it's a tank that I don't particularly enjoy, to be honest. Is it a good tank? No, it's okay. It's okay. It's pretty balanced, to be fair. I just don't really particularly enjoy it. So as always, everybody, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.
A great success.